You gave me just enough to stay, never enough to rest, enough to keep my heart awake, enough to lose myself. You held me like a temporary, like something soft to use, close enough to make me whole, far enough to never choose. I kept turning your confusion into something I could trust, made a home inside your almost, and called the hurting love. I was waiting for forever, you were waiting for the feeling to pass. You gave me just enough to stay, just enough to break me slowly, enough to make me feel wanted, never enough to truly hold me. You loved me in little pieces, then disappeared when it got hard. And the cruelest thing about almost love is how real it feels before it falls apart. Learn to live on breadcrumbs, on silence and delay, on all the little ways you cared without enough to stay. I kept lowering my needs till they fit inside your hands. Still somehow I was too much for your half-finished plans. You wanted love without the weight, without the risk of truth, and I kept giving all of me to someone scared to choose. I kept mistaking inconsistency for something deep and real. You gave me just enough to stay, just enough to break me slowly, enough to make me feel wanted, never enough to truly hold me. You loved me in little pieces, then disappeared when it got hard. And the cruelest thing about almost love is how real it feels before it falls apart. Love should not feel temporary, should not disappear with fear. It should not hold you close at night, then act like nothing's there. And maybe what still hurts the most is not what we became, it's how long I let your half-love convince me I should stay. You gave me just enough to stay, but never enough to heal, never enough to build a home, never enough to feel real. Now I know what love should be, and I know what this was not. And the strongest thing I've ever done is leave the place where I begged for scraps of heart. You gave me just enough to stay. You stood so close to loving me, I could feel it in your hand. more step and maybe you would finally understand. But every time I reached for you, you pulled away again, leaving me with promises you never meant to end. I kept believing someday you would love me honestly, but hope can make a prison out of almost being seen. You gave me enough forever to make goodbye hurt worse. You almost chose me, almost stayed, almost gave your heart away, almost loved me without fear, almost wanted me right here. And the cruelest thing I've ever known is almost can feel so real while breaking you slow. I learned to live in waiting, in your silence and delay, in every little maybe that slowly turned to pain. You kept me like a secret, like something safe and small, close enough to keep me hoping, never close enough at all. I built forever from your fragments, from the warmth you used to show. But half love leaves the deepest scars because it never fully goes. You held my heart carefully, like something you might lose. You almost chose me, almost stayed, almost gave your heart away, almost loved me without fear, almost wanted me right here. And the cruelest thing I've ever known is almost can feel so real while breaking you slow. Maybe if you had loved me less, I would have learned to leave. But you loved me just enough to make me still believe. And that's the kind of heartbreak no one ever sees, when someone almost chooses you, but never really means it. You almost chose me, but almost never stays, almost builds 1,000 hopes, then quietly walks away. You almost loved me, and that was worst of all, because almost love can feel so close, right before it lets you fall. You almost chose me, but almost was never You said I fell too deeply, loved too hard, cared too long, like my heart was something heavy you could only carry wrong. So I started speaking softer, taking smaller pieces too, trying not to need too much, trying not to scare you. I bent around your distance, made myself easier to hold. But no matter how I changed for you, your hand still was never asking for too much, just asking the wrong heart. I was too much for you, too honest, too real, too ready to love in ways you couldn't feel, too present, too open, too willing to stay. And the saddest thing I ever did was shrink myself just to make you stay. You wanted something easy, something light, something safe. Not a heart that loved completely, not a soul that wouldn't fade. I kept blaming my emotions like caring was a flaw. But love should never make you feel ashamed of wanting more. You called my love overwhelming, I called your distance pain. And somewhere in between those truths I lost myself again. You made me feel impossible for needing something real. I was too much for you, too honest, too real, too ready to love in ways you couldn't feel, too present, too open, too willing to stay. And the saddest thing I ever did was shrink myself just to make you stay. Maybe I was never too much, maybe you were simply less ready, less certain, less able to give your best. And maybe what still hurts the most is how long I believed that loving deeply was a weakness instead of something rare in me. I was too much for you, but never too much at all. I was just too real for someone scared of love. Now I know my heart deserves someone who won't run away. And the strongest thing I've ever learned is never shrink yourself to make somebody stay. I was too much for you. And finally, I'm proud of that. You felt like home the first time you looked into my eyes, like every lonely part of me finally found some light. You spoke to me so gently, like you could understand, and I placed my fragile heart inside your careful hands. I thought love had finally found me after all the hurt before. I didn't know some people feel like home without a door. I got comfortable in your warmth before I noticed it was fading. You felt like home until you didn't, until your love grew cold inside, and I kept trying. made me think you'd never walk away. But slowly you grew distant, like someone I once knew. And I kept holding on to memories instead of holding truth. I stayed inside the ruins of the love we used to be, trying to find the warmth again that no longer lived in me. You didn't leave all at once, you disappeared in pieces. You felt like home until you didn't, until your love grew cold inside and I kept trying to fix it. You felt safe until you changed. And the cruelest thing about heartbreak is home can become the place that hurts you most. How do you move on from somewhere your soul still knows? How do you stop missing a feeling that once felt close? And maybe what still breaks me is not that we fell apart, it's that I still remember how safe you felt at the start. You felt like home, but homes can burn, and some hearts leave lessons you never wanted to learn. You felt safe, but safety left. And now I know love should never make you feel alone inside someone else's chest. You felt like home until you didn't. I stayed through every silence, every night you pulled away. Stayed when loving started feeling like something I had to beg for every day. I stayed when your eyes changed, when your touch lost all its fire, when I became the only one still fighting for desire. I kept telling myself love was worth the pain, but loving you alone only left me drained. I gave you every part of me, you barely gave enough, and I stayed for nothing, stayed just to break, stayed while my whole heart slowly fade. I kept holding on to memories while you let go of us. And the cruelest thing about heartbreak is realizing too late you stayed for nothing. I made excuses for your distance, called your coldness just stress, turned every little breadcrumb into proof you cared less. I lowered all my standards just to keep you near, till I forgot what love should feel like without the fear. You stopped choosing me quietly, too late. You stayed for nothing. Maybe the hardest truth is knowing love alone can fail. No matter how deeply one heart stays, if the other's already gone. And maybe what hurts the most is not losing you in the end. It's losing myself, trying to stop it. I stayed for nothing, but I won't anymore. I won't beg for love that feels like war. Now I know forever cannot be built by one. And the strongest thing I've ever done is finally walking away from what was already gone. I stayed for nothing too long. You wanted me less. The more that I stayed, the more that I loved you, the colder you became. I gave you every honest part. You answered with delay, and I kept calling your distance something temporary. You held me when you needed comfort, not when I needed truth. And I kept mistaking loneliness for something close to you. I was loving deeper while you were pulling back. You wanted me less. Every time I loved you more. Every time I opened up, you closed another door. I kept giving all my heart. You kept giving less. And the cruelest kind of heartbreak is watching love fade while you're still doing your best. I learned to live on almost, on silence and excuse, on all the little ways you stayed without enough to choose. I made peace with inconsistency just to keep you near, till I forgot love shouldn't feel this heavy with fear. You stopped reaching for me slowly in ways too small to see. And by the time I felt the distance, you were already leaving me. I was fighting harder while you were letting go. You wanted me less. Every time I loved you more. Every time I opened up, you closed another door. I kept giving all my heart. You kept giving less. And the cruelest kind of heartbreak is watching love fade while you're still doing your best. feel unwanted for simply loving someone. And maybe what still hurts the most is not that you changed your mind, it's how long I blame myself for what was never mine to fix. You wanted me less, but I deserved much more. A love that stays certain, a love that doesn't make war. Now I know the difference between being loved and kept, and the strongest thing I've ever learned is stop begging for love from someone already left. You wanted me less, while I loved you more. You felt like something permanent, like someone heaven sent. But every time I held you close, you slipped right through my hands. I tried to build forever from moments that were weak, tried to turn your half-love into something I could keep. You gave me hope in pieces, just enough to make me stay, then disappeared behind your silence every time love asked you to stay. I kept holding tighter to someone already leaving. You were never mine to keep, just close enough to touch my heart, not close enough to need me. I loved you like forever, you loved me temporarily. And the cruelest thing about heartbreak is sometimes the one you want most was never yours to keep. I learned your kind of distance, the slow and quiet kind, the type that leaves no warning, just emptiness behind. You held me when it suited you, then vanished into space. And I kept searching for old feelings in your unfamiliar face. I stayed long after meaning, long after warmth was gone, because letting go felt harder than admitting I was wrong. I was building something real while you were passing through. You were never mine to keep, never mine completely, just close enough to touch my heart, not close enough to need me. I loved you like forever, you loved me temporarily. And the cruelest thing about heartbreak is sometimes the one you want most was never yours to keep. Maybe that's what hurts the deepest, not that you walked away, but how real you felt before you Love should never leave you begging to believe. And the strongest thing I've ever learned is some hearts touch yours deeply without ever being yours to keep. You walked into my life like you were gonna stay forever. Spoke in ways that made my heart believe we'd end together. You held me like you meant it, like I was finally safe. But slowly all your promises began to fade away. I kept trying to hold on to the person from the start, while you slowly turned distant right beside my heart. I loved you permanently. You loved me for a moment. You loved me temporarily, like something passing through, like a feeling you could hold at night and forget by afternoon. I gave you all my loyalty. You gave me uncertainty, and the cruelest thing about heartbreak is I loved you forever. You loved me temporarily. To live on maybe, on silence and delay, on all the little ways you cared without enough to stay. You kept me close when lonely, then distant when you healed, and I kept mistaking your comfort for something real. I made excuses for you leaving before you even left, because deep inside my breaking heart I knew what came next. I stayed loyal to forever, while you stayed loyal to feelings. You loved me temporarily, like something passing through, like a feeling you could hold at night, then forget by afternoon. I gave you all my loyalty. You gave me uncertainty, and the cruelest thing about heartbreak is I loved you forever. You love me temporarily. Love should not expire the second things get hard. It should not disappear while still holding someone's heart. And maybe what still hurts the most is not that you let go, it's how real you made forever feel before deciding no. You loved me temporarily, but I loved you completely. And now I know the difference between being wanted and being deeply loved sincerely. You gave me passing feelings, I gave you everything in me. And the strongest thing I've ever learned is never give forever. You didn't break me all at once. No slammed doors, no goodbye flames. Just little changes in your voice and the way you stopped saying my name. You stopped reaching for my hand first, stopped looking in my eyes, and somehow all those tiny things destroyed me over time. I kept telling myself we were only going through pain, while your heart was slowly learning how to live without my name. You left so slowly, I didn't notice I was alone. You broke me quietly in ways nobody saw. With silence, distance, almost love, and all your quiet flaws. You made me feel unwanted without saying it out loud. And the cruelest kind of heartbreak is when someone destroys your heart without making a sound. I learned to read your coldness like weather in the room. Learned when not to ask for comfort. Learned when love would disappear too soon. I shrank myself to fit you till I barely knew my shape. Still somehow I was too much for the little love you gave. You kept me hanging on to memories while creating brand new space, and I kept falling for the version of you that time erased. I kept trying to save us while you quietly let go. You broke me quietly in ways nobody saw. With silence, distance, almost love, and all your quiet flaws. You made me feel unwanted without saying it out loud. And the cruelest kind of heartbreak is when someone destroys your heart without making a sound. Maybe loud heartbreak heals faster because at least it tells the truth. But quiet heartbreak leaves you wondering what happened to you. And maybe what still hurts the most is how gentle you looked while slowly teaching my heart how abandonment feels. You broke me quietly, but I hear it clearly now. Love should never leave you begging for warmth you once found. Now I know real love stays honest. It does not fade in disguise. And the strongest thing I've ever learned is silence can break a heart just as deeply as goodbye. like all the lonely parts of me had finally found some light. You looked at me so carefully, like you'd never let me fall. And I believe forever could exist for us at all. But slowly things grew colder in ways I couldn't name, till loving you felt one-sided and nothing stayed the same. I kept holding on to memories while you moved on inside the same room. At least I felt love for a while. At least your arms felt safe. At least I knew what happiness was before it slipped away. Maybe it was temporary. Maybe it was never true. But for a little moment in my life, I felt loved because of you. I still replay the old days, the way you said my name, the nights you held me close enough to make forever sound real. I know things changed between us, I know your heart moved on, but part of me still misses who we were before it was gone. Sometimes I wish I never met you. Sometimes I'm glad I did, because even broken memories still prove love once existed. And maybe some people enter your life just to leave a feeling behind. At least I felt love for a while. At least your arms felt safe. At least I knew what happiness was before it slipped away. Maybe it was temporary. Maybe it was never true. But for a little moment in my life, I felt love because of you. I hate that I still missed you, but I miss the person I became. Back when your love still felt warm and my heart still felt okay. And maybe what hurts the most is knowing we had something real, just not something built to last. At least I felt loved for a while, even if it didn't stay. Even if forever turned into another thing